my goodness! Breaking news! Important statements are emerging that start to reveal how all the negotiations have unfolded. We were eager to find out what had happened. What's going on with Red Bull, with Checo Perez, and with Colapinto? Well, something slipped out from Har, and honestly, it has put two parties in a very bad light. One of them is the Red Bull team, or rather, we'll say Red Bull as a whole, whether as a person or company. Red Bull has come off very poorly because even before negotiating the contract with Checo Perez, they had already kicked him to the curb. Legally speaking, that isn't even lawful. On the other hand, we're also starting to see how James Wolfe is behaving. What's going on? Why is James Wolfe staying silent? There's enormous uncertainty. By now, he should have confirmed Colapinto as the third driver, but he hasn't done so. I want to lay everything out by dates because the timeline will help us see clearly when Red Bull started asking about Colapinto, when they decided to rule him out, and the exact dates involved. Pay attention because something strange is clearly happening here. We're all waiting for Bose to speak, but before that, Isack Hadjar has spoken, and he has just exposed a lot. Breaking news. Isack Hadjar has revealed how all the negotiations played out. This isn't just about Sergio Pérez and what we might call Red Bull's betrayal of him. It's also about the negotiations between Colapinto and the Williams team. Welcome, maniacs, to the Formula 1 section of YouTube. Stay, enjoy, and smash that like button. Make it huge. We've got to destroy that like button to urge Uncle James to speak up. James, we love you and want you to remain part of Franco Colapinto's future. But we also want everything to be clear. What's going on? How did the negotiations with Briatore and others unfold? Now, we're about to learn another key point. Before diving in, I want to apologize to all the sport maniacs out there. Yes, because even though you haven't called me out on it, and I know you show me so much respect for all the hours I put in, all the effort, and all the excitement I share through my passion for Formula 1, I've realized something. Ever since the news of the past few days started coming out, I need to downshift a gear or two. Yes, because I've noticed that my level of frustration, let me explain this properly, is way above the average for sport maniacs. This means I haven't processed it well, and I shouldn't be showing this side of myself here. Sport Maniacs is like the neighborhood bar. It's about sharing and enjoying together. If this were my personal YouTube channel, maybe I'd be setting everything on fire. But the truth is, Sport Maniacs is all of us. We're all excited about Franco Colapinto's potential entry into Formula 1. Whether it happens in the first race, though it's not 100% certain yet, we're all rooting for it. And you'll see how everything aligns with James Wolfe and the madness that's unfolding. For now, we need to be patient. Thank you to all the fans who convey such positivity to me. I'm incredibly passionate and a die-hard fan, and those who know me are already aware that this whole situation has really affected me. But I believe that sport maniacs as a community are not heading in the same emotional direction I've been lately. I know you haven't called me out on it, and I truly appreciate the respect you show, but I'm sure many of you have noticed it. I can tell by your comments. They're different from how I've approached the videos these past few days. So let's take a more optimistic approach and ease off the throttle a bit. Even though I distrust this group until the end, because with them, you never know, I'm making an effort to take it down a notch, even if it feels like we're going downhill fast. But hey, let's slow it down anyway. With these people, you really never know. Isack Hadjar has just signed with Red Bull, earning a golden opportunity to enter Formula 1, much like Franco Colapinto with Williams. Yet, while Franco's situation with Williams and James Wolfe might still be under consideration, look at how Isack Hadjar is stepping into the Red Bull team with a completely different tone and decisive statements. With this group, anything can happen. But the real bombshell didn't come there. It came when Isack Hadjar, in his statement, let slip or outright revealed since when he's been a Red Bull driver. This opens up many conclusions, both about the path Sergio Pérez and Red Bull have taken in their negotiations and about the route Red Bull and Williams have followed with James Wolfe, and so on. Let's break it down step by step. Isack Hadjar stated, honestly, by mid-season, I already had a bit of an idea of what was happening. Mid-season. By that time, Red Bull had practically finalized the termination of Checo Perez's contract, which Checo had to accept. Look at how Red Bull was acting. Hadjar even mimicked a roller coaster with his hands, saying, there were moments when I was very close to being announced. We all know how things work in this sport. Things move very, very fast. So, since the summer, Red Bull was already preparing for this. However, summer wasn't when they confirmed him. Hadjar explained that by then, he knew there was a strong possibility that Checo Perez would leave Formula One and that Hadjar would step in as a substitute in the secondary team. Meanwhile, Lawson would join Verstappen as a teammate. These developments had been rumored for a long time, but here's the key. After that, Hadjar admitted, you see yourself more in the reserve role the following year. He added, it's been a bit like a yo-yo with my emotions, but I've managed to stay focused, perform well, and prove I'm good enough for Formula One. And then came the ultimate bombshell. I found out at the Qatar Grand Prix that I was going to be in Formula One. Here's the bombshell. Hadjar found out at the Qatar Grand Prix family. He says, and now we'll analyze this properly, that it was almost certain beforehand, but until something is signed, it's never fully secured. This suggests he signed the contract directly during the Qatar Grand Prix. It had been increasingly certain since the summer. But as he notes, until it's signed, clearly referencing that the signing happened in Qatar. What's truly impressive is the timing. Checo Perez still had negotiations pending, and as we sport maniacs already knew, Checo had the final say. His contract was still valid, which highlights how precarious the situation was. This opens the door for Checo to potentially go to court and argue, look what they did while I still had a contract. But let's continue. Hadjar described the cutthroat nature of this business, saying, even in a moment like that, after the race, they told me. But until I'd signed, I kept thinking something might happen. He admitted that even 2 or 3 days before signing, he wasn't entirely sure. Everything depended on finalizing the paperwork because, as he put it, with these people, you never know. That's the key, with these people. Despite being handed the opportunity of a lifetime, Hadjar's tone suggests skepticism, even disdain for Red Bull's methods. This phrase, these people, feels dismissive, and it gives insight into how Red Bull is perceived, even by those they promote. But the real crux here isn't the tone. The key is Hadjar confirming that the signing took place at the Qatar Grand Prix. So, why is this significant? Because the Qatar Grand Prix was on November 29th. It wasn't even December yet, and Hadjar was already confirmed. Let's call it December. First, for simplicity, yeah? Everything that followed between December 1st and December 8th was just public relations, which is why some outlets leaked it early. Hadjar knew, not because they told him outright, but because, as he confirms, or heavily implies, there was a signature. That signature effectively removed Checo Perez from the team. Lawson, meanwhile, was clearly not going to be left without a seat, as we know from reports that Lawson would have sought another team if he hadn't been guaranteed something by September. Therefore, it seems that, given how things are unfolding, what happened with Checo Perez is a brutal act of disrespect. I mean, we've just found out that what we thought happened wasn't just bad. It was really, really bad. We hadn't seen this. We hadn't realized that before Checo Perez even had a chance to say no, while he still had a contract and could have continued, Hadjar's contract was already signed. Incredible. But there are other things too, and this is what we're saying. Theo James, we love you so much. Thank you for giving Franco Colapinto this opportunity. This is part of the 2 gear shifts down, just so people know. So thank you very much, and we love you, Theo James, for this opportunity. I think it's been very important for Franco Colapinto, but I'd like, please, for you to explain this sequence. Here's the sequence. Attention! Briatore gave Colapinto the thumbs down. We're talking about several pieces of news here, so pay attention because all of them are important and I'll list them chronologically. First, Red Bull asked about Colapinto. This was on November 2nd. Yes, on November 2nd during the São Paulo Grand Prix. Then, The Las Vegas Grand Prix happened, and what happened, happened. The following weekend, on the 29th, they had already decided, supposedly because of Colapinto's accidents. And that's what's been said, and it seems to align with what we're seeing. November 29th, December 1st. Isack Hadjar probably signed around these dates. Here's the key point. James Wolfe knew about this beforehand. Obviously. I don't think he found out later. So here's one of the key points. Why? Because when Red Bull asked about Colapinto on November 2nd, it was during the Brazilian Grand Prix and the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Colapinto's accidents, already analyzed in Magnetico, check it out to see who's at fault or whatever, played a role. By November 29th, he was no longer in the running. We didn't know about this at the time because Hart boasted about it, but between not believing him and the lack of any mention of the signing, it was left at that. Because lots of people can talk at Red Bull, but the signature is what counts. So, if there was a signature, the entire situation from November 2 until the moment Red Bull closed the door on Colapinto, who is a great talent, but we have a good junior program, they said, happened on December 4th. For those who've talked a lot about Red Bull's little dogs, I think they've actually been the most honest in this story. See how perfectly it all fits into the calendar. On December 4th is when they directly tell you that they are no longer interested in Colapinto. That's December 4th. They already have the signing done. And they don't want to drag it out any longer since James Wolfe hasn't come out to say that he won't be going to Red Bull. Red Bull steps up and says, it's not going to happen because Red Bull already knows the signing is done but can't say it because they are pulling a fast one on Sergio Pérez. This story is wild and this video has very, very, very good information to help understand more or less how it could have happened. The story could have been totally different, but I think that with all the puzzle pieces we have, the puzzle fits. If the puzzle later turns out to be different, just know that they've given you a puzzle that can be put together in two ways, or at least it seems that way. Here comes the bombshell. On December 14th, Briatore gave Colapinto the thumbs down. This happened on December 14th, and we're talking about after the Formula 1 season had already ended. James Wolfe had already known for 2 weeks that there wasn't going to be anything with Red Bull, and on December 14th, I insist the news comes out that Briatore gave him the thumbs down. It was the first time he mentioned that in 2026 he could sign Colapinto, and he basically ruled him out for 2025. At the time, we didn't pay much attention and said, Briatore is negotiating. Then the last time he brought it up, he kept insisting on the same thing. So another piece of the puzzle fits because everything Briatore has said matches. Briatore has been consistent. It seems that if you interpret it this way, the season begins without Colapinto in Alpine. Briatore, just like Red Bull, has been upfront about how things are. And the only thing that has confused us hasn't been the press stirring up rumors, although that has happened, but rather the silence of certain people. Now, I don't want to apologize to Briatore because the kitten comment was said affectionately. I think these things might even amuse him because there's a difference between going too far and making a funny joke. But it is true that if you look at the story today, because today many things are being revealed thanks to what Hadjar said, you can see several things. One is that Red Bull has been playing games, as many of us thought. Red Bull is playing, trying to gain traction or whatever. And here it has been proven that everything they said matches perfectly and that the crashes were the key. Then Briatore comes out on December 14th, yes, 11 days ago, and says exactly this. I'm interested in any driver who is fast. Colapinto surprised everyone, but we have contracts with Pierre Gasly, Jack Doohan, and Ocon for the upcoming season. If there's a possibility to sign Colapinto for 2026, it would need to be considered. He said this 11 days ago. And considering that James Wolfe was once again using the same technique, pay attention, the same technique as with Red Bull, staying silent and not saying anything while negotiations are closing. Instead of doing that, look at what James Wolfe does. I've shown the dates. December 14th is the last one. Look, on December 14th, the same day, Briatore publicly ruled out Franco Colapinto. And we said, is he negotiating? We know how Flavio Briatore is. But what we didn't know is that 2 weeks earlier, Red Bull had also ruled out Colapinto. This happened on December 1st, 15 days before. So when James Wolfe said, "Pay attention, the changes haven't ended," it seems the changes actually had ended. Briatore admitted it publicly, and Red Bull had signed Hard 15 days earlier. Hard had already gone public with the news, and Red Bull repeated it multiple times so that fans wouldn't be confused. But they still managed to scramble our heads because, amidst all this, there had been false information. Or so it seems. For example, there was the situation with Ruben, among others, that distracted people. If you stop to think, analyzing Red Bull's responsibility with the timeline and the key Hard provided, they're not to blame. Then you analyze Briatore and realize, wow, I've called him a kitten or a lion, but in truth, he's also been pretty clear. After all, the one thing we can't afford to be is unclear. That's the point we're making. We can accept that Franco Colapinto might not start in 2025, but what we can't accept is that James Wolfe, who said, "I'll do everything possible to keep Franco in Formula One," hasn't been clear. Also, when everyone is talking about a story and one person hasn't spoken, it's natural to think poorly of them. But let's wait for him to speak, because maybe he'll flip the narrative 180 degrees. Lastly, well, not lastly because I've said it already, but I'll repeat it again. Thank you, James Wolfe. Unlike Red Bull and Alpine, you've actually done something for Franco Colapinto. You gave him the chance to debut in Formula One. And sure, Colapinto wrecked the garage. It happened because he had to learn. But he did destroy the garage, and that cost millions. So we're talking about James Wolfe. Thank you very much for everything, but something doesn't add up. On December 14th, you said, "Pay attention, the changes haven't ended." But as of today, December 25th, nothing has been said about those statements. On that same day, Briatore publicly stated that Colapinto would not be considered for the beginning of 2025. And the same thing happened as it did with Red Bull. When everything became official with Red Bull and it was announced in the press, Wolfe didn't directly come out and say it was ruled out. Instead, on December 14th, he said, "Pay attention," when by that date, Red Bull had already made the signing, Briatore had already ruled it out, and nothing had been said publicly. That's why Red Bull kept insisting through the press. And the same happened with Briatore, who also brought it up twice in the media. The last time Briatore said it in the press, it caused anger because we made the headline about the lion when in the end it turned out to be a kitten. But when you look closely at the key statement from Hard, who mentioned the contract signing in Qatar, it changes everything. Because what negotiations could there be if it's not Alpine or Red Bull? And Williams had already been ruled out from the beginning. What negotiations could there be? Pay attention, the changes haven't ended yet. 11 days later, we're still waiting for a response, James, because clearly, by that date, everything was already closed, and Colapinto no longer had any options. This is how things stand, family. I insist. When Wolfe speaks, I believe everything will turn 180 degrees, and then we'll come back to say who's responsible. We'll play the game of musical chairs to figure out who's at fault. For now, what we do know is that the one paying the consequences is Franco Colapinto, who, for now, doesn't seem to have a seat for the start of 2025. I think this video has made things quite clear. Thank you, Hard, because yes, you made a strong statement with these people, you never know. But you also gave us a key piece of information, and thank you for that, because it's helped us realize several things. First, how dirty Red Bull has been with Checo Pérez. There's no need to even elaborate on that anymore. And second, the uncertainty, the mystery, the puzzle we've been trying to figure out in previous videos. What's going on, James? Why have we continued to hold out hope when it seemed like there was no hope left? Is there another team, James? Are you thinking of bringing Albon back? Or is Briatore lying? Or Red Bull? Because of course, if James comes out now and says something like Briatore blah blah, or Horner blah blah, then the narrative could change completely, right? What we know is all rumors. The good thing is that these aren't rumors. They're official statements from Hard. But until now, we knew negotiations had been very tough. James Wolfe wanted the damages from Colapinto's cars to be paid, as Briatore himself mentioned before when he gave Colapinto the thumbs down. Briatore said something quite clear. You always have to be cautious when evaluating in this sport. After a good race, a driver's value skyrockets. Then the price goes up, and suddenly we're talking about 20 or 30 million. This was another key detail because supposedly it was 20 million, or maybe 20 million plus, all the damage Colapinto caused. Obviously, there are many rumors. But here at Sportmaniatico, we're never going to confirm anything that isn't grounded in facts. What we can confirm is this. What's being said about Colapinto not being in Formula 1 until 2026, or him being at Williams, or anything with a 90% certainty, all of that is false. That's on the level of artificial intelligence or a work of fiction, depending on how you want to classify it. But the truth is this, Hadjar just revealed everything. The disrespect from Red Bull toward Checo Perez is terrible. And Mr. James Wolfe, thank you for giving Colapinto the opportunity. But thank you also in advance for explaining what's happening.